Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome here to chase race number 1 of the 2023 PCSRA Foster Series. Of course, these drivers just got done with qualifying earlier tonight. Excuse me. Non-charter qualifying got rained out, so the lineup was set by owner points, which meant the 6 drivers that have raced their way into tonight's event would be the following: Donovan Updike in the 66, Lainey Fredrickson in the 44, who's making her return after being gone for so long, Seth Cole in the 25, Maximilian Chilton, I'll explain about why he's in the 54 this week and not Michael Mickinter for the remainder of the season, Rick Witt in the 33, and finally, last but certainly not least, Carmen Alejandro in the 60. Carla Sinat, unfortunately, was recently eliminated from the playoffs. She is on the pole position, just trying to find victory lane to end off what has been a struggling season for her, 32nd in the points. Alongside of her, Jackie Tang, who is tied for 3rd in the points and one of the playoff contenders in the championship. And then a couple of non-playoff contenders. Run number 2 being Remy Crampton on the outside. And on the inside is the 16 of Paul Minnick. Minnick 28th in points. Remy Crampton 33rd in the point standings. And then there you go. You can check down the description or check over here. There's the starting grid over there. This is the reformatted points going into tonight's race. I will post this on Discord. You can check down the description for the drivers that failed to qualify for this race. Of course, the 16 drivers have a C next to their name when you get ready to see the starting grid on your screen. That means, somebody had a problem, so that's an automatic restart. And here's the thing for these drivers, these 16 that are in the playoffs. If you win tonight's race or next week at Hillside or our first elimination race at Ricky, that is an automatic ticket into the next round of the playoffs. And of course, with the points being super close, let's go over the point standings, which will be an easy task. Sam Davis, Nick Voiles are the co-points leaders. They have a 5-point cushion over the remaining 14 drivers, which is Emmanuel Hartnett, Jesse Hart, Cody Smart, Jackie Tang, Noah Platts, CJ Bracken, Kyle Langland, Caleb Hobbs, Nathan Norman, Sean Art, David Heller, Quentin Moore, Zachary Taylor, and Shane Lake. Of course, Quentin Moore won last week in a must-win situation to make the playoffs. And of course, with the drivers that have the C, the 16 drivers that made it in the playoffs, that tells you who is in the playoffs and the ones that are not. Who? Tonight is the Quaker State 400 presented by Advanced Auto Parts. 54 laps about to be run here this evening. And as I said, if any of our 16 playoff drivers wins, it's an automatic ticket into the next round. What you don't want to have happen tonight for these 16 playoff drivers is get involved in a big wreck, because that will have to put you in recovery mode going into Hillside and our first elimination race at Ricky. Getting ready for the Quaker State 400 presented by Advanced Auto Parts. The playoffs for the Foster Series is green. Let's go racing, drivers. We mentioned 16 drivers are battling for a championship. You got another 26 drivers that want to go to victory lane as desperately as they want to. Carla Sinat will lead the first lap of this race. I don't think pitch strategy will come into play. Remember, bonus points can also be the difference of if you move on the next round versus being one of the 4 drivers eliminated. There's Nick Voiles, playoff contender Shane Lake. Lake was sweating bullets, but he barely got himself in the playoffs by staying in the top 30 in the point standings. And Nick Foyle's one of the first playoff driver to lead a lap. And with the points being as close as it is, this will also determine, who will take the points lead heading into next week at Hillside. As Carlos Sanat's trying to get underneath the Home Depot Toyota, but can't get the pass mates. Check the back of the field. Bradley Reams back here. Chase Brooks is back here. Donovan Updike, who made it in because of qualifying being rained out. Jamie Pintor is back here. See a couple of playoff drivers back here. Caleb Hobbs is one of them. Lainey Fredrickson making her return to the series after, after the whole controversy. And, of course, she did apologize to the officials. Caleb Hobbs is back here. This is not what Caleb needs. There's all these drivers. Jaleesa Kisman, who was just recently eliminated from the playoffs. As I forgot to change the paint scheme for Kyle Langland. I do apologize for that. 34, Quentin Moore's back here. Kyle Langland, Sean Art. Couple of playoff drivers back here at the rear of the field. They got to make sure to stay out of trouble. Because like I said, if you get in trouble here, you're going to be in recovery mode going into next week. As Zachary Taylor, Jesse Yard, a couple of playoff contenders back there. They're 4 wide. That's not good. Cody Smart, playoff contender right there behind Shane Lake. There's CJ Bracken, playoff contender. Nathan Orman just making his first playoff appearance. Of course, something cool for Sean and Jesse Art. They are the first brother and sister to make the playoffs together in the same season, as Nick Voiles currently the leader. David Heller is in second. David Heller is another driver who's in the playoffs in that 43. There's another playoff contender in Noah Platts. Of course, Noah Platts has been on a bit of a free fall that after finishing the first 13 races as the points leader going in the All-Star race, but the last 7 weeks, that 21 team has fallen apart by crashes or mechanical failures. Sam Davis right there. This is a very important race for these 16 playoff drivers. You do not want to be in positions 13 through 16 when the checker flag waves at Ricky Raceway, because if you end up 13 through 16 after Ricky, you'll be one of the 4 drivers eliminated from the playoffs. Jesse Art's back here. Of course, Kyle Langland. This is not where Kyle Langland needs to be. Right now, the 4 drivers in the danger zone, Jesse Art, Kyle Langland, Zachary Taylor, and Shane Lake. Those would be the 4 in the danger zone going into next week as things stand, but of course, long way to go. I know next week is going to be a hell fest when we go to Hillside, because there could be anyone that could make it into the next round of the playoffs. As Nick Voiles still leads the way. Of course, with him and David Heller, as things stand, those drivers would be in a very good situation going into Hillside. Sam Davis, I think you can say the same. How about Maximilian Chilton? Now, let me explain about why Chilton is in this ride. Of course, this race was going to be Michael Mickenterp, but he was rushed to the hospital after practice concluded. So Maximilian Chilton had to got to the track just before qualifying, and he made it in time for qualifying. So that meant he got to keep his starting spot rather than being put on the 5-minute clock and having to start at the rear of the field. So great job for him, his second start. And I know everyone's asking, why did the 54 make the race? That's because when you combine the owner points of Mickenterp, Chilton, And Julia Landauer, who's no longer in this series anymore, only made one start, failed to qualify for the rest. That car came into the race 41st in owner points. Yes, I said that the non-charter qualifying was set by owner points. Because the 54 had multiple drivers in there where they scored 367 points, that was enough for the 54 of Chilton to make the race. As David Heller just took the lead from Nick Voiles, here comes Carmen Alejandro. Carmen's not in the playoffs, but she would like to go to victory lane in the third RFK racing machine, the AutoNation Ford Mustang. Of course, Jared did not make the playoffs, and Cody Smart is in the playoffs. Nice run for a go-or-go-homer. Checking back here at the rear of the field, Jared Underhill went way up out of the groove. Nathan Orman's back here. Nathan Orman's right now one of the 4 drivers in the danger zone. Zachary Taylor and Sean Art are the other 2. And who is the 4th driver in that tier would be, well, of course, Shane Lake. But these drivers better not have, and wait, somebody's out of the race because I only see 41. Oh, it's Zachary Fitzwater. He's out of the race with a blown engine. That's a non-playoff driver. And it's been a rough return to the Foster Series for Fitzy. 26 in points. Well, not the run he would have liked. So a tough break for Fitzwater, who's had a struggling season. And you know, when I was going through the, when I was resetting the playoff grid, you know, for the 16 drivers that made it in, there was a couple of things that really surprised me and some that didn't surprise me. The some that didn't surprise me is, you know, all 4 Joe Gibbs racing cars made the playoffs. That didn't surprise me at all. 3 of the 4 Hendrick cars made the playoffs. I mean, you know, Bracken, Langland, Orman, yeah, that's kind of a bit surprising. You know, both Trackhouse cars made the playoffs, Jesse and Sean. That really didn't come as a surprise. Well, Jesse making the playoffs, you know, that's pretty cool. And Sean, you know, not surprised that Sean made the playoffs because he also made the playoffs in Munster back in 2021, but he was eliminated after, I think it was the round of 12 or 15. I don't know what round he was eliminated. I think it was round of 12, but I could be wrong. And of course, Ormy went on to win the championship that season. Zachary Taylor, not surprised he made the playoffs. Quentin Moore, really surprising that Front Row Motorsports made the playoffs after the struggles that team has had so far. But I think the big surprise, of course, you know, you got, you know, David Heller, the only Petty GMS car to make the playoffs. Caleb Hobbs, a single car BJ McLeod Motorsports team, made the playoffs. That's a couple of surprises. Emmanuel Hartnett is the only Stuart Haas racing car who made the playoffs, for goodness sakes. I don't think anyone expected 3 of the 4 Stuart Haas racing cars to miss the playoffs. In fact, I did not expect all 3 Penske cars missing the playoffs, and the only one that's an affiliation of Penske is the Wood brothers. They're the only ones who made the playoffs, for goodness sakes. Right now, as things stand, Nathan Orman, Quentin Moore, who else? Kyle Langland and Shane Lake. As of right now, those 4 I just documented are the 4 drivers in the danger zone unless somebody had a problem. Looks like nobody has had a problem, but Ormy, Q-Man, Langland, and Lake, as of right now, are the 4 drivers in the danger zone heading into next week's race. But a lot can happen here as William Davis trying to find victory lane. Of course, all 3 Penske cars were eliminated from making the playoffs, which I think that's the big surprise. Not surprising, not surprised that Rick Ware Racing made the playoffs. Not surprised there. 2311, not surprised they missed the playoffs. Not surprised Spire missed the playoffs. I think the couple of big surprises who missed the playoffs, Jessica Shelton at 9. And I expected that 9 team to go to victory lane. Did not. That's one surprise. Penske I talked about did not make the playoffs with all 3 of their drivers. That's the big surprise right there. The 4, the 41, and the 14, who I thought were going to make the playoffs, like Fitzwater, Liera, and Wallace, missed the playoffs. Tori Gossett missed the playoffs. Doesn't come as a surprise to me. Daniel Witter, of course, Daniel Witter is going to end up finishing dead last in points of the full-time drivers. Which, in my opinion, that really doesn't surprise me, because that 45 team has fallen off a cliff. And it just sums up a miserable year for that team. As Paul Mennick's going to go for the race lead. Going to be passing the halfway mark. As far as that is concerned, let me update you on... I'm going to wait for the ticker to update. Right now, as things stand, the 4 drivers in the danger zone would be Ormy, Q-Man, Zachary Taylor, and Caleb Hobbs is now in 32nd. So those would be the 4 drivers in the danger zone heading into next week. Past the halfway mark in tonight's race. So you got all 4 JGR cars. Sam Davis, Jackie Tang, Nick Voiles, and I'm trying to think who was the other. Let me see. Sam Davis, Jackie Tang, Nick Voiles, and Zachary Taylor. 1 RCR car, that would be Shane Lake. Quentin Moore, the only Front Row Motorsports car that's in the playoffs. Only Petty GMS car that made the playoffs was David Heller. You have the Wood Brothers and Noah Platts. You have an RFK racing driver that made the playoffs. That would be, of course, Cody Smart. 3 Hendrick cars made the playoffs. Bracken, Orman, and Langland. Both Trackhouse cars made the playoffs. When I say both Trackhouse cars, that's both Trackhouse cars, the full-time drivers I'm referring to. Caleb Hobbs, I did not expect Caleb Hobbs to make the playoffs, but that's a big surprise. And right now, Langland is already dropping back. Quentin Moore. Right now, Orman, Langland, Lake, and Quentin Moore right now are going to be the 4 drivers in the danger zone unless we get a caution. Right now, Nick Voiles is the highest of the playoff contenders. Cody Smart is the next highest. Cody's looking pretty good going into next week at Hillside. And I'm going to have, and speaking of Cody Smart, I'm going to have him do some number crunching for me as far as how many points are they behind 12th position in the points. Right now, Sam Davis and David Heller look like they're going to be in good situations going into next week as things stand. Zachary Taylor is now going to be in the danger zone as of right now, along with Lake, Orman, and Langland. Every position matters in this race. Right now, out of the top 10, we have half of our... we have Voiles, Smart, Davis, Sam Davis that is, and Jackie Tang. 4 of the 10 drivers in the top 10 last lap are playoff contenders. So they would look like they're going to be in very good situations heading into next week at Hillside. But knowing Hillside, that track could really reek the points up big time, and sets us up for a very interesting elimination race the following week at Ricky. And like I said, Ricky will be the first elimination race for this series, in which we will go from 16 to 12, meaning 4 drivers are going to get eliminated from the playoffs, as we're currently going through the field. Good run for Seth Cole. Sean Art's having a good run. Sean would look like he would be in a good situation going into next week. And Cody Smart trying to go for his second win of the season. But here's the thing for the two of them, the 20 and the 17. This is a spot to move on to the round of 12. Right now, Langland, Taylor, Lake, and Orme would be in the danger zone heading into next week, which means they need a good run, or they could be going into Ricky Raceway basically in a must-win situation. Right now, let's see. Has Zachary Taylor passed the... No, Taylor's dropping back. This is not what neither of them needed. 41 of the 42 cars on the lead lap. Zachary Fitzwater, of course, a non-playoff driver, out of the race, which I don't think that's going to matter much. I expected a lot of cautions in this race tonight. We have not had one yet. But next week we will see a lot of yellows which is the second race of the round of 16. And like I said, if we have a lot of playoff drivers that have troubles at Hillside, that's going to make things a little bit interesting going into our elimination race at Ricky. But like I said, and I'm probably going to say this for these rounds, for the elimination race, I am definitely not going to take a guess and say who are the 4 drivers getting eliminated. Because every time I take a guess, I'm going to be 1,000% wrong. So don't quote me on that. As we're inside of 10 to go. The only thing I will say is who would be moving on the next round. But like I said, it's going to be borderline who's going to be moving on and who's going to be eliminated. Right now, Cody Smart, if he wins, he's into the next round of the playoffs. And just remember, if he wins and that's 5 extra playoff points, those 5 playoff points could be the difference if you're going to move on or you'll be eliminated. So that's, if I were these drivers, I better start thinking about the big picture of trying to make the next round. Because like I said, you win this race, you're in the next round, regardless what happens the next few weeks. Whether you have a poor race next week at Hillside, just remember, if you win tonight, you're in the next round regardless the next 2 weeks. It would be a shame to see, Nathan Orman, Zachary Taylor, Shane Lake, and drivers that are eliminated. Right now, Orme, Taylor, Lake, and Langland would be the 4 drivers in the danger zone of not moving on to the next round. But like I said, we'll definitely have 2 more races to go to find out who will be the 4 drivers eliminated from the playoffs. And some people think the playoff system is boring and all that. To be fair, it brings a lot. It's exciting for me. Because I don't want to be down there knowing who's moved on and who's not. Carlos not trying to deny Cody Smart a ticket into the round of 12. Carlos not just wants to find victory lane. The problem for Carlos and it would come 1 week too late. And had it been a regular season race, she would have been a driver in the playoffs. But a win is a win. Remember in the Real Life Cup Series last year where we had, 5 non-playoff drivers go to victory lane? Took us to, I think it was one of the elimination races in Cup before we had a playoff driver move on the next round of the playoffs. No matter what happens to Cody Smart, he will be the highest playoff driver, whether he wins this race or not. But I know Cody will be in a very good situation going into next week. The same can be said to Jackie Tang. But who would be the points leader? I have not even got a clue. As we are going to have 2 laps of racing to go. But Cody Smart wants to be the points leader when we get to the round of 12. Because remember, he wins tonight, he's in the next round. Carla Sanant, she's not in the playoffs. She's trying to be a playoff spoiler and try to move on to and trying to just get a win and what has been a difficult year for the Australian. One of two in this series, the other being Zachary Fitzwater. Here we go. White flag. One more lap around here at Kentucky. Now the battle for second. Cody got a little tight. Jackie Tang tried to take a run at it. That might have been all she wrote right there. Carla Sanat is about to be home free. It's about to be the second win of the year for Petty GMS Racing, or what is going to be called Legacy Club next season. Carla Sanat plays playoff spoiler and wins the Quaker State 400 presented by Advance Auto Parts. Unfortunately for Carla, it came 1 week too late. But a win is a win for the Sunseeker Chevy Camaro out of Petty GMS Racing, who will be changing their name to Legacy Club next season. But well done to her nevertheless. Standings are now official. Cody Smart will be the highest playoff driver in second, Jackie Tang third, so those two are going to be sitting pretty good going into next week. Carmen Alejandra, great run for a go-homer in fourth. Heather Gallant fifth, another playoff contender. CJ Bracken in sixth. Noah Platt seventh. David Heller eighth. Nick Voiles ninth. Paul Minnick 10th. I have counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 drivers that finished inside the top 10 of the points. They're going to be sitting pretty darn good going into next week's race. What about the other 10 drivers? Sean Art, 12th. He'll be okay as long as he gets a good run next week. Sam Davis, 13th. Emmanuel Hartnett, 14th. Going to get down here to where it's going to get a little bit tougher. Chilton ended up 27th. Tough break for him. Quentin Moore, 28th. As you look on down through the remainder of the finishing results. Jesse Art, 29th. Kyle Langland, 30th. Caleb Hobbs, 32nd. Shane Lake, 33rd. Zachary Taylor, 34th. Nathan Orman, 39th. Ugh. That's not the run Nathan Orman needed. I'm trying to remember if I missed the playoff driver or not. I think I got them all. So that means, the way I'm looking at this, the 4 drivers who will be entering next week's race in the danger zone: Nathan Orman, Zachary Taylor, Shane Lake, and Caleb Hobbs. Those 4 need a good run next week, or they could find themselves heading into our first elimination race at Ricky Raceway, basically finding themselves in a must-win situation when we get there. But that is going to do it from Kentucky Speedway. I'm going to go ahead and show you the points after the first playoff race, as we send get well wishes to Michael McInturf. And that was a fun playoff race. It is Kentucky, you darp. But telling me it's a track error. It's Kentucky. Yeah, there it is. Tells me a track error when it's not. Quaker State 400. And we had no cautions, to my surprise. But that's going to do it here from Kentucky. Congratulations to Carla Sanat on her first career Foster Series win. Sorry if it was not a spot into the playoffs, but hey, Carla got a win. That means she's locked into next season's All-Star race. Hope you guys enjoyed tonight's race. If you did, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe to become part of the PCSRA crew today. We've shown your full finisher results. These are your point standings and rookie points as far as the updated playoff standings, and I was indeed correct. Hobbs, Lake, Taylor, and Orman will be finding themselves trying to get in recovery mode as you look at the overall rookie points and overall points and playoff points heading into next week's race. So, yes, we'll see you guys next time for Hillside. Until then, I've been Dieter signing off, as you've been watching another broadcast of PCSRA TV celebrating 13 years of existence, the best in our racing since 2017. Good night from Kentucky Speedway.